friends, at this time we are going to begin the funeral services for Harry G. Sachsel. For those of you joining us here in person, we would just kindly remind you to make sure that your cell phones are either turned off or placed in the silent mode. And for those of you joining us online through Zoom, we welcome you and appreciate your participation and being here for the family as well. Officiating today's services will be Cantor Jennifer Frost from Congregation B'nai Jehoshua Beth Elohim in Deerfield. Thank you.
עושה שמיים וארץ. עזרי מעם אדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon at night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. "'Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched." The 23rd Psalm. Adonai roi lo echsar, bino t'dasher b'tzeini, almei menuchot, yenaleini. Nafshi yeshovev, yeshovev, Yancheini v'magelei tzadak, Yancheini v'magelei tzadak, Leman neshamo. Gam ki eilach begeit salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivetecha umishonatecha heima yanachamuni Taroch lefanai, lefanai, Shulchan neged zorai, Dishanta v'Hashem en roshi, Kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai meshavedi beveit Adonai leorech yamin. Adonai roi lo echsar, Adonai roi lo echsar. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We are an ancient people, and we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow, they are not strangers to us, yet the centuries have taught us that a good name, and Harry had a good name endures beyond the grave, and that there is strength in faith. And so we say with Job, Adonai Natan, God, you have given us. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all that was good and enduring in his life, we offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Adonai Lakach, and God, you have taken away. And we pray for the strength to turn our broken hearts into an altar of trust before which we acknowledge your sovereignty and love. As we say now, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach. Blessed be the name of God now and forever. It does great honor when those who have known us the best stand up and offer words of praise and of thanks. So it is my honor now to invite virtually into our sacred space this morning Ryan and Gary, who will offer words of praise about their grandfather and their brother-in-law.
I guess I'm first on. Following the concept that that speaks much is much mistaken, I'll keep this concise. Hello, hello, hello. Upon hearing this tertiary opening, you know who is on the other side of the conversation. Harry called himself Denver when making dining reservations. I couldn't challenge that eponyme as I remember his thin Texas ties and his walk a little from side to side. Harry's business was one I never previously heard of. I remember him providing me with a copy of one of his books, and I admit reading most of it. And he followed the philosophy, I guess, of either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. And Harry did both. My wife reminded me that the first time we met Harry was when he drove to O'Hare to pick us up, our two children and my wife's parents, to take us to a hotel a day before his wedding to my sister. He was definitely, absolutely, and certainly jovial, and that demeanor did not change even when he was in the hospital. For years, Harry assisted Mickey in taking care of my parents. I wasn't around, and to my knowledge, without an objection. He always wanted to help. There was a time I worried and actually felt sorry about any horse that Harry decided to ride. Now I'm concerned how my sister, Stacy, and Mindy will be able to stay strong. But I'm confident with all the friends and family there, they will be well. Harry was passionate about life, his daughters, my sister, and abrasive tools. And I will truly miss him. The world was better with him in it. Thank you.
Right prior to the service, I was handed a eulogy written by one of Harry's co-workers, Mark Anstead. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And he writes this: "Where do I start talking about Harry? Harry was involved with manufacturing for almost 6 decades, started a business because he saw a need in industry, helped an untold number of individuals and companies when they had a need to make their precision grinding better and more profitable. And he didn't stop there. His acumen grew. He kept refining customers' applications. Over the years, Harry built a reputation as the guy in grinding. I have known Harry my entire life, and where I was not involved directly with him until 2020, many times I would hear about what he was doing in the industry. His love of customers did not stop until only a couple of days before this last New Year's. His phone never rested. It was extraordinary. Always when he spoke to people, he would ask how they were they doing okay? And he did this with everyone. That was the real Harry. He went so much further than just securing an order. To Harry, getting the order was easy. Making sure his customers were getting it right was far more important. The world needs more people like Harry. I will miss him. Mark." Ryan is with us now, so I invite Ryan to come into our sacred space and offer words of praise for his grandfather.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan. I'm Harry's grandson, and I wanted to speak today to commemorate my grandpa. Harry had a long life worth celebrating and from which we can all learn some meaningful lessons. I would like to take some time today to identify, affirm, and share some of the values HG lived by, values that we can carry forward that will continue his legacy and presence among us even after he is gone. Before I share these 3 values, allow me to set the scene with an anecdote about HG. HG is the name I enthusiastically call Harry. HG, woo! Always the way I answer the phone. Anyways, some time ago, my brother and I were probably around the ages of 12 and 14. We're having Thanksgiving dinner at my Uncle Mitch's house. Suddenly, in the middle of dinner, HG goes, Michael, Ryan, let's talk. He stood up from his chair and went to walk into another room. I looked at Michael, he shrugged, and we followed. We met up with HG in the other room. He looks at us seriously and he says, all right, boys, I need to tell you a story. It was 1965. I was on the train from Marseille to Paris, and I met this honey. She was looking really good, and we hit it off. And we ended up having sex in the bathroom. Sometime later, I found out I had crabs. Moral of the story, always rub her up. He clapped his hands and exclaimed, all right, let's go eat some turkey, and walked right back to dinner. My brother and I were very confused. I don't even know if we knew what sex was at the time, but it was very weird, funny, and years later has been one of my many inspirations for me to travel. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I have not had the same experiences on a train that Harry had. Maybe I'll get luckier in the future. It makes me very sad to know that these stories are now confined to the past. And while we gather here today in great remorse, I am so grateful for all of the lessons Harry taught us. The principles I learned from Harry are best communicated via particular memories I have with him. Here are 3 values and their accompanying stories. Value number 1, being confident in who you are. This is less of a particular anecdote and more of a general memory of repeated behavior that sticks in my mind and for sure the minds of others. As we all know, HG was not exactly a Calvin Klein model by the time he was 75, yet he did not give a fuck about how other people perceived him. This mindset was most clearly illustrated in the frequency with which he walked around my house in his tidy whities. He was so emancipated from stupid and harmful social pressures. This self-image freedom is something I think is particularly valuable for the younger ones here, but is an excellent reminder to be comfortable in your own shoes. Value numero dos, passion and hustle for your work. During one of my last conversations with HG, he proudly shared that, despite the challenging circumstances, 2021 was a career year for him. In absolute defiance of the typical age arc of work performance, Harry was still trending upwards in regards to his hustle, even as his body was failing him. I remember thinking during this call, damn, this dude is 10 toes down, meaning he works really hard, even while he's in the hospital. It's not that Harry was a workaholic, but someone who created joy and purpose through his craft. I still don't really know what the hell he did, something with abrasive engineering, but that doesn't matter because what I do know is that he truly cared about the stuff he was doing. So regardless of the field, whether it is a hobby, profession, or something else, Harry's fulfillment that he derived from his work is something we can all strive to emulate. Value number 3, being friendly and the power of good faith. I share this value last, as it is the principle of Harry's that most impacts my life. HG was incredibly gregarious, so comfortable talking to others, and always liable to spark a conversation with a stranger in an atypical location. I never really realized how friendly he was until I was reflecting while writing this eulogy. I also never really realized the power of good faith until I was reflecting while writing this eulogy. It's under this value is where most of my Harry memories are stored, which are unequivocally the funniest and which have taught me the most. So I'll share 2 quick anecdotes because the topic merits the bonus story. The first story was at a diner. We were walking to our table, and as we sat down, we realized we lost Harry. As we searched for him with our eyes from our comfortable seats at the table, we saw him chatting someone up who was in the middle of their meal. A couple of minutes later, Harry comes to the table and we go, "How do you know that guy?" He responded, "I had no idea who he was, but I approached him and said, 'Hey, I noticed you're also fat.' And then we talked for a bit." Who the fuck speaks to a stranger like that? Yet for Harry, it worked. And it was that good faith in his tones that allowed it to happen. The other story is about Atreyo, my good friend from college. HG met Atreyo when he came to Tufts for my graduation. My buddy got to see Harry's ridiculousness up close in person, and he marveled at the absurdity of Harry, but he also was overjoyed by the kindness HG showed him. Specifically, they connected because Atreyo was set to move to Chicago after graduating, where he knew no one. The meeting was brief, and I expected Harry and Atreyo to probably never talk again. That being said, a few weeks later, Atreyo gets a call from an unknown number. It was Harry, calling Atreyo to welcome him to Chicago and help him out in any way he could. Now, I have no idea what help Harry could have actually provided Atreyo, but it doesn't matter. It was the effort and the thought process that made both Atreyo and me so happy. When I told my buddy that Harry had passed, he texted me back immediately saying sorry and concluding with, "What a legend," and the crown emoji. It's amazing the impact Harry could have on someone, even with a little time together. These stories show how friendly and open Harry was, the joy he felt from being with others, and the comfort he exhibited from talking to strangers. They also exemplify how fucking far good faith can take you, because Harry's underlying good faith compensated for the weird, at times insensitive, and straight to the point commentary that he conducted. But it's something that I hold so dearly in my heart today. I get so much joy and delight in friendship and sociability, and also connecting with people who I do not know yet. And that's something that I learned and watched Harry do on a consistent basis. We'll miss Harry. He was an exceptionally loving husband, father, and grandfather. And while we won't be receiving his frequent funny phone calls, and he won't be insulting your children with inflammatory language, or actively striving to make the world a better place, we can hold dearly the principles he embodied in his life and bring them forward with us. While he may be gone, his impact surely lives on. CYA, HG, I love you.
Thank you, Ryan. Rabbi Shimon teaches in Pirkei Avot, the sayings of our sages, that there are three crowns which command the respect of people: the crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of sovereignty, but the crown of a good name, that surpasses them all. And looking back over the life of Harry as we did just a few days ago, we see that he has indeed achieved what rabbis called 1,500 years ago this great title, a Keter Shem Tov, the crown of a good name, both through his accomplishments and his character. So I don't know if you all know Harry's story, but it's one that is quite extraordinary. Harry was the only child born to Edith and Stephen in Vienna in 1938, and his story is one really of survival. He was born as Harry Georg Israel Sachsel, but someone was super quick thinking and removed Israel from his papers. So one day, as he was out with a family employee, a babysitter, in the stroller, Nazis came by and asked for the papers of this child. Because he did not have Israel written on his documents, Harry's babysitter was able to say that he was his grandchild, and they let him go. Extraordinary moment number one. Harry's father was a 3-time boxing gold medalist, happened to work out with some SS soldiers. He was able to ask a favor and arrange paperwork to get the entire family out of Europe, 17 people. They ended up on one of the last ships to leave Europe, stopping in Cuba and eventually making their way to Chicago. Extraordinary moment number two. They lived in a small apartment with his parents, grandparents, and all the while, Harry did not have a room or a bed to himself. He slept on the couch. And you shared with me that while he never had his own bed, he didn't really have one until he entered the military. one can only assume as you would grow up that way that that had an extraordinary effect on how he would conduct and live his life. He did not have an easy childhood. He was bullied for being a Jew. He had some trouble in school, so his parents sent him to a private school. But Harry really wanted to attend Roosevelt High School, and so after some convincing, they let him attend, and it was because they had a shop and a woodworking program. He graduated. He went on to enlist in the Air Force, where he served for 4 years. After the Air Force, he studied at the Colorado School of Mining. He studied in Vienna. He studied in England, and eventually earned a degree in engineering, becoming a Certified Abrasive Engineer. After working for a firm for a time, he started Diamond Industrial Tools, and he worked until just this past December. You shared with me it became a full-time life ambition to use his knowledge to help others achieve better products and better results. He left a wealth of knowledge in the grinding world in his books and his articles. He worked hard and was passionate about his work. And as you told me, he believed if you love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. And working in the business was a family affair. The company was started in your basement, you told me. Terry was the bookkeeper. Stacy, you remember working as early as 5 years old in the office. Not sure what you did exactly at 5 years old. Labeling, maybe, sticking things in places, maybe dusting, cleaning. Well, eventually, all of your siblings came along and followed and worked in the office. Even if it was just cleaning, you all were together. And as we've heard, he loved his customers, sometimes even visiting them when you would go on family trips. He married Terry, and they raised 2 beautiful, strong daughters, Mindy and Stacy. And as you both shared with me, he was an eccentric man. He loved his cowboy boots, his hats, shirts with snaps, must be snaps, bolo ties, and he wore these every day. He was likable. He was never mean. He never lied or yelled. He genuinely cared about others. He wanted to make sure, as you said to me, people were seen, whether it was an employee or a friend or even the waitstaff in a restaurant. He had a knack for making people feel special. And you shared with me that your dad was a role model for you, not only with his work ethic, but the way in which he lived his life. And he met Mickey in 1984. Although you told me you had said hello to each other for 9 years prior when you saw each other at the YMCA, he asked you one day if you wanted to go running as he needed a new running partner, and you said yes. And you were smitten. You told me you fell in love with him because he was just kind, and there was a twinkle in his eye. So you were married in 1987. You blended your families together. And what I saw as we spoke the other day, there was just sheer love and respect between all of you. And that's extraordinary. And that is something, Mickey, that you and Harry were able to build together. You loved to run, to swim, to ride your horses anywhere and everywhere. You traveled the world, and you seemed to just enjoy life and being together. And for Mindy, Stacy, Mitch, David, Ed, and Kenny of blessed memory, you all shared the same message with me. You felt loved and protected by Harry. Ed, you said over and over again, he was your biggest advocate. Yes, he wanted you to have a firm handshake that went along with everyone he met and all your friends as well. And he instilled in a love of playing pool with all of you. And of course, you all remember at some point sleeping in a van. There was a mattress that was put in the back of a van when they would go to the Indy 500. And you all have a love of cars. But mostly what you shared with me was about the kind of man that Harry was. He was genuine and altruistic, interested in others. He was a teddy bear who never yelled, who dealt with anger through laughter, you said, who always put others first, who was humble and honest And you are all better because Harry was in your life. How extraordinary it is to have your children be able to speak that way about you. From every one of them, that was the message. Indeed, Harry leaves behind a legacy of which to be proud. A legacy of working hard. Nothing is given to you. Be passionate about what you do. Help others. Be a mensch. Be kind. Have each other's back. Go with the flow. CYA. Follow your dreams. And don't ponder the what-ifs. Live life to its fullest. We often say that the only difference between people is whether or not they've had love in their lives. And this is so evident that Harry had extraordinary love in his life. He gave love freely and beautifully and with a generous big heart. And you all surrounded him with extraordinary love. May his memory be for a blessing. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind and be empty and turn back, or you can do what he would want. Smile. Open your eyes. Love, and go on. I invite you all now to rise for the memorial prayer. Rachamim shochena b'maromim Hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina Im kedoshim utehorim kezohar harakim azirim Et nishmat Tzvi Yaakov ben Stephen vayide shalach leolamo Ba'al harachamim yasdirehu beseter kenafav leolamim v'yitzror b'yitzror hachayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato Ve'anuach b'shalom al mishkavo Ve'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Harry Sachsel, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence and in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And we say together, Amen.
Friends, this concludes the services here at the chapel. The interment and burial services will continue at West Lawn Cemetery in Norridge. For those of you driving with us to the cemetery and the funeral procession, please keep the following safety precautions in mind. Please make sure that your bright headlights and your four-way hazard flashes are on at all times. Please be sure to obtain an orange funeral safety sticker for your windshield, and we will be placing a magnetic orange flag on several of the cars throughout the procession. Please travel as close as safety permits to the car in front of you to avoid any gaps in our procession. And for your own safety and security, I would suggest not speaking or texting while driving in the funeral procession to the cemetery. Also, as we make our way to the cemetery, if you are about to enter an intersection and the car in front of you goes through, even if the light begins to change, please proceed with caution and make your way through the intersection, and feel free to use your horn liberally as we go from here to the cemetery. The family has requested that any memorial contributions in Harry's memory to the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research, that information is available on the service folder that you received when you came into the chapel. And for those of you who are joining us online, that information is also available on our website. The following individuals have been asked to serve as pallbearers: Glenn Luebke, Jeremy Luebke, Mark Paschke, Mark Enstedt, and Faisal Akunji. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the casket and the pallbearers and the clergy and the family from the chapel.